My son was about 4 or 5. He was playing at the shallow end of the pool, and I was 2 feet away. I turned to grab his cup to offer him a drink, and when I turned back, he was gone. He was little, he was fast, and he had no fear of water, which made the beach beyond that pool terrifying to me in a way I can still feel today. Fortunately, there were family members everywhere, and my nephew had already spotted him and taken off after him toward the water. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that he had been there, and now he wasn't. If you have an autistic child who elopes, who bolts, who slips away, who disappears in the time it takes you to look down, you know that feeling. So today, let's talk about elopement. I'm Andrea Pollack. I'm a parenting educator and coach and the parent of an autistic young adult, and I've been where you are, unfortunately more than once. When most people hear the word elopement, they picture a child running away from something, overwhelm, sensory overload, a demand they can't handle. And sometimes that's exactly what it is. But a lot of the time, elopement is an escape. It's pursuit. I'm about to reveal in this video a really inconvenient truth that my son got away from me more times than I care to mention, but I'm going to because we keep it real here. When my son was about 11, I took him to a grocery store. It had an unusual layout. You had to follow a specific route around the store. And at that point in his life, Matthew usually stayed so close to me, he practically felt attached to my side. I reached down to grab something from a low shelf, and he was gone. I went straight to security. They sent a few people with walkie-talkies, and we found him pretty quickly. It felt like an eternity to me, but it was probably more like 5 minutes. He had found an exit route that didn't follow the store's path at all, and he had used it to get back to that fresh food section where he wanted to touch the crushed ice. That's it. That's the whole story. He wasn't frightened. He wasn't overwhelmed. He found something irresistible, and his impulse control skills were not well developed yet, and his body just went. That's the piece that doesn't get talked about enough. Elopement is often driven by impulse, by a brain that sees something at once and moves before judgment has a chance to catch up. And when you layer limited communication on top of that, you get a child who can't say, I really want to go touch that ice. So they just go and touch the ice. Understanding the driver matters because it changes how you respond. A child fleeing overwhelm needs something different than a child in pursuit of something irresistible. But in both cases, the core reality is the same. This is a skill gap, not a behavior problem. Their impulse control, their danger awareness, their ability to pause and communicate, those are developmental skills that are still being built. And until they're solid, no instruction, no consequence, punishment, no magic phrase will reliably stop a child mid-bolt. Elopement is not a parenting failure. Again, at least that's what I tell myself. But I do really sincerely believe that. And I need to say it because the shame that follows an elopement incident is real, and it's heavy, and it's not earned. When Matthew was about 17, we were on a vacation and checking out of our hotel. It was a large, unfamiliar place, and no one there knew us, and we certainly didn't know the place well. We'd been there a couple of days. My husband was handling the bags at the elevator, and I was in line to check out at the front desk. And the moment my husband turned to get a bag, Matthew bolted. The place was enormous. There was no way to run around and look for him on our own. So again, I went straight to security, and they mobilized people with walkie-talkies and his description. At one point, a security guard actually found him, and he slipped away from that guy too. Those 15 minutes were among the most frightening of my life. A strange place, no familiar landmarks, a young man with limited danger awareness, and no reliable way to ask for help or tell someone who he was. Eventually, he turned up at the hotel restaurant. They contacted security, and we went and got him. Here's what I want you to notice about that story. There were 2 adults present. Actually, there were 3 because my daughter, who was about 18 at the time, was also with us. We were paying attention. We had him. And in the span of a turned back and a bag from an elevator, he was gone. And then he slipped away from a trained security guard on top of that. Elopement can happen in the middle of close, attentive, loving supervision. The stealth quality is real. And many autistic kids are remarkably fast and quiet when something has captured their attention. It's not a reflection of how carefully you're watching. It's a reflection of how quickly and silently a motivated child can move. And if you need one more piece of evidence for that, my son once slipped away from a school group outing at a restaurant. There were 4 adults supervising 7 students, 4 trained school staff to 7 students. It was a lunch outing, and those were highly motivating for him. So he wasn't trying to get out of something, but he managed to slip out, walk the streets of New York City alone, find a Starbucks, and order himself a coffee. I didn't find out about that one until it was over, so I didn't spend those moments of incredible panic. The head of school called me after my son was already home, safe and sound with me, and told the story. And mentioned that the barista had called the number on his ID badge because she noticed that he couldn't quite communicate his order. And when she called the number, the school mobilized some people to go get him and found him safe and sound, sitting happily, sipping some coffee. The terror I felt was retroactive, so not quite as painful as when I was in charge. I still get emotional, though, thinking about that barista, a stranger who looked at my son, noticed something, and did the right thing. That kindness is something I will always carry with me. I just told you 4 stories where my son eloped. From a pool where I was 2 feet away, from a grocery store where he was practically attached to my side, from a hotel with security staff and walkie-talkies, and from a school outing with 4 trained adults. Supervision is still the first line of defense. It's irreplaceable. But my own experience is proof that it has its limits. And that's exactly why it can't be the only layer. The tools I'm about to share are what you add on top of supervision to close the gaps that even the most attentive parent cannot always prevent. And supervision has another limit that doesn't always get talked about enough: the environment itself. One family I worked with, wonderful, attentive parents, were walking on the beach with their daughter. She was a little bit ahead of them, as children often are, and then she ran and climbed onto rocks that were genuinely dangerous before they could reach her. Nobody failed in that moment, but it taught something worth carrying. If you know your child is faster than you and that bolting is a real possibility, the environment itself becomes part of the equation. We can't always foresee these things in advance, but with hindsight, we can sometimes make some different choices the next time around. A different route, a handheld a little sooner, a terrain that doesn't put speed and danger in the same place. The main reason I wanted to share these stories and confess, really, is because although I want to offer some tips, it's really about sharing, right? It's about understanding that even the most well-meaning, even the most attentive, even the most vigilant parents, it happens. So I just want people to feel less alone if that's ever happened to you. On the tip side, I'll just do the best I can to offer some other thoughts. But again, you're taking tips from a person who lost her child several times, so, do with it what you will. Until your child has developed the skills to keep themselves safe, supervision paired with structure is the foundation. And every time you supervise, you can pair it with a calm, matter-of-fact explanation. Not a lecture, just we're holding hands in the parking lot because cars move quickly and I want to keep you safe. You're not expecting that sentence to stop them in the moment. You're planting a seed, and over time, those seeds become the safety awareness that real independence is built on. I always talk about planning for our children's worst day, not their best. Maybe they followed the rule 3 days in a row, and that's real progress. But the day that matters most is the 4th day, when they're tired or overstimulated or something irresistible right there in front of them. Skills don't grow in a straight line. We need to plan for the dips. The detail that made the Starbucks story end the way it did was that the school had a protocol where they had the children wear an ID tag. It was just a rope with a big tag with their picture on it, the name of the school, the phone number, and the barista noticed that tag, saw the number, and made the call. An ID tag doesn't prevent elopement, but it can create a bridge between your child and anyone in the world who wants to help them. That bridge is worth everything. Today, there are GPS wearables as well. They're designed specifically for children and adults with communication difficulties or who might end up in this situation. They can be worn as watches, clipped into shoes, sewn into clothing. These weren't available when Matthew was young. If I were raising him today, I would have one in his shoe, sewn into his clothing, or on his wrist if he could tolerate that. I can't go back, but I can mention to you that I would not hesitate for a moment. They don't replace supervision, but they compress the time between he's gone and I know where he is. Next is the environmental setup. Door alarms, fenced yards, visual stop cues at exits. The goal is to make the unsafe option harder to access while the skills are still developing. It's not designed to be restriction, it's scaffolding. The next tool is to contact security immediately. As you noticed in my stories, that's what I did. In a large or unfamiliar space, don't try to search alone. Security teams have radios, coverage, and the ability to mobilize quickly. Give them a description, stay in one place so you can be reached, and let them help. This is what I did, as I mentioned, at the hotel and the grocery store, and it's what I'd tell any parent to do in that situation. Another option is a pause cue. What I mean by that is a word or a phrase like wait, stop, freeze, used consistently when you see your child moving toward this danger. Over time, this becomes a bridge between their impulse and their judgment. It won't work in every moment, but it does build that pause and danger awareness over time. Elopement is terrifying. because the stakes are real. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I've felt that fear in my body at the pool, in the grocery store, and in a hotel lobby. I felt it retroactively when I was told that my son walked the streets of New York City alone and got himself a coffee at Starbucks. Every layer of structure you add, every calm explanation you pair with your supervision, every tool you put in place, that is the work. That's how their brain slowly builds what it needs to eventually stay safe on its own. You're not just protecting them today, you're helping them build toward the greatest level of independence that they can achieve. If this is something that you're navigating and you want support building a real plan for your child, it's the kind of work I do with families every day in my coaching program. I'll put a link in the description box. If this video helped you feel a little clearer or a little less alone, I hope you'll subscribe. Leave a comment below if you're willing to. I do think it's so important to share these stories to help parents feel less alone, less guilt and shame. I hope you'll share it with someone who needs it, and I'll see you in the next one.